You are watching DHTV from California State University, Dominguez Hills.
Good afternoon and welcome to Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, the South Bay Economic Forecast event. May I have your attention, please, and please take your seats. Thank you very, very much, folks, for joining us. I can feel the energy in the room. The business energy is noticeable and very robust here today, so thank you very, very much for being with us. I'm Frank Motek, the senior money anchor for KNX 1070 News Radio. It's an honor to be back with you here on the campus this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, you did not have to get up with the chickens today to soar with the eagles who've gathered here today. This is the first time we've had this event in the afternoon, and love to see all the networking and robust discussion going on here on the campus this afternoon. A lot to talk about. We can celebrate. At least the Dow was up today. Good thing we didn't have this yesterday, right? Up 401, NASDAQ up 209, and the S&P 500 up 49. And here's the forecast you've been waiting for. Mostly sunny, high up around 75, lows will be down to around 65. We're showing a gorgeous 72 right now here in Carson. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to get started now. We have a lot to talk about, a lot of exciting things happening here at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. The South Bay Economic Forecast, an event, is not an event nowadays unless it's on social media. So for those of you who have your smartphones, you know, in the olden days they used to say, oh, you know, put away your phones, but we don't do that anymore. If anything, you're encouraged to take them out and take lots of pictures. The hashtag is South Bay Forecast for Twitter and Instagram. At Dominguez Hills is the university's handle, and if you want to be generous, at Frank Motek is yours truly handle as well. Hashtag CSUDH will also work. Technology, ladies and gentlemen, never stands still. It's always changing, adapting, and progressing, and oftentimes things that seemed improbable or even impossible 1 year earlier can quickly become conceivable. And what a fast year it's been, and a lot has happened, and a lot of exciting things have happened that we'll be hearing about today. Very honored to be with you here this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, because like many of you, I'm eager to learn about future innovations that are going to change our lives. The way we drive, for example, the way we conduct financial transactions, social media platforms we use, the changes that are taking place in the cities where we live, what will be the social impacts, and how different will our kids' lives be from our own. Today we have an exciting lineup of panelists who will discuss some of these futuristic concepts and how they're going to affect the way we live and do business. In an effort to support the futuristic concepts of today's program, you can find today's schedule at the following URL. There it is on the screen. And I would like to acknowledge the fantastic sponsors out there, ladies and gentlemen, who've helped support this important occasion. Many thanks, first of all, to our gold sponsors, which include Pacific Century Custom Service, Ms. Bree Newen, CSUDH alumna, AEG, SA Recycling, and Ivy and Leo Chu. Again, congratulations and thank you very much to our gold sponsors. And now for the silver sponsors, we gratefully acknowledge your support. I'd like to take this chance now to recognize the following elected officials who've joined us here today as well. California State Assemblyman Al Muratucci, City of Carson Mayor the Honorable Albert Robles, City of Carson Councilman Cedric Hicks, City of Carson Mayor Pro Tem Joanne Hilton, City of Hawthorne Councilmember Olivia Valentine, City of Torrance Mayor the Honorable Patrick Fury, City of Torrance Council members here as well include Mike Griffiths, Jeff Rizzo, Milton Herring, and George Chen. Let's hear it for our elected officials who've taken the time to join us here this afternoon. And now we'd also like to recognize the Cal State University Dominguez Hills South Bay Economic Forecast Student Research Competition. finalists that are exhibiting in the ballroom today. So a special shout out and salute to you guys there. Andrew Liu and Joshua Lozano, Eugene Cox, Nathan Castro, Malika Dasaneyake, and Isabel Gonzalez. Did I get it right, Malika? I hope so. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, today's program will be in 3 parts. We'll be hearing updates on housing and telework trends, entrepreneurship, and the South Bay economic forecast from the California State University Dominguez Hills Economics Institute and UCLA Anderson. We will then transition to the speaker panel, who will discuss a region in transition. The future is here. And following that, we will invite all of the speakers to the stage for an audience Q&A. And lastly, we'll end the afternoon with a craft beer and wine tasting reception in the Palm Courtyard, which is just below us. And you can taste the local craft brewery flavors of King Harbor, Smog City, Three Weavers, and Strand. I'm also told make sure you hang on to your name tag so you'll be able to get in there when this is done. Also on display by Honda R&D Americas will be one of the mobility innovations that you'll hear about today, their autonomous workhorse. Before we dive into the program, however, this gentleman wants to take a photo, so we'll take care of that right now. Right? No? Okay. All right. I would like to introduce the host of today's economic forecast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of California State University Dominguez Hills, Dr. Thomas A. Parham. And for those of you who may not have met the president at the reception yet, he joined the university as the 11th president of this institution this year, and it's an honor now and pleasure to invite President Thomas A. Parham to the stage to deliver the official welcome on behalf of the university. Ladies and gentlemen, President Thomas A. Parham.
Good afternoon. Oh, wait a minute. All the chatter that y'all had in here a minute ago trying to settle down, and that's the best we can do. Good afternoon. So 2 pieces of ritual I want to engage in as I welcome you. First, I heard our host and MC introduce what I think is why we do this, which is our students. And the kind of intellectual horsepower that we have on our faculty helps to produce and cultivate the intellect that you see right there. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the future. Those of us who occupy the adult corridors of the world right now do so that we prepare a way for them. And I think what we can do is let them know how much you appreciate them and how much you encourage them, right, in their academic endeavors so that they can take their rightful place of rulership and mastery over this South Bay region. Give it up for our Cal State University students. Let them know you love them. Toro's in the house is what we say. Next thing I'd like to do is I want to invite you to engage in what is a brand new ritual. Because part of what we want to do is make sure that you know what our students know. We want to create a sense of belonging on this campus. And there's no place I would rather for you to be in talking about this South Bay economic forecast than on this campus of Cal State University Dominguez Hills. We ought to be the place that is hosting this kind of conversation, where topics of economic forecasting become the topic of critical discourse and analysis in this place. So I want you all to repeat after me in a very loud, resounding voice, right? Because all of you are now citizens of the Toro Nation. Say, good day, Toro citizens. Good day, Toro. Oh, that sounds so weak. Let me try that again. Maybe it's my tie or something. Let me get that together. Good day, Toro citizens. Good day, Toro citizens. I respect your humanity. And I bear witness to your success. That's what our students are now exchanging with each other as they walk up and down the walkways. You'll start to see signs begin to appear as we do that. So with that, with those 2 rituals, I want to greet you and say good afternoon and welcome to the California State University Dominguez Hills. It's great to see all the representatives here from the various businesses and industry sectors that are here in this South Bay region, which we are proud to be a part of. I also bring you greetings from the California State University system. what is the largest system of public higher education, not in the region, not in the state, not in the Western United States, in the entire nation, at nearly 490,000 students that we educate. That sounds like an applause line to me. And we are one of those 23 campuses that takes a great deal of pride in educating. That your Cal State University Dominguez Hills, your Cal State University Dominguez Hills is not a small place anymore. We used to be 5 and 6 and 7 and 8,000 folk. We are nearly 16,000 students now. It's nearly 16,000. And I'm glad to hear the gasp, like, oh, yes, they have grown. But you ain't seen nothing yet. Just be patient with us and help us grow along with you. And we're looking forward to that. So we are proud to be one of those 23 campuses, trying to do our part to educate a broader swatch of the state citizenry. And we've got a lot of excellence here, I think, on campus. We invite you to come and take a part of. We think we represent one of the best opportunities to cultivate investment and interest in a workforce that is culturally diverse. Our demographics are among the most diverse, not only in the California State University system, but in the entire nation. Everybody is talking about how to create a more diverse and inclusive and equitable workforce environment. And right here, you have the best living laboratory right here on this campus in your region. So I truly appreciate you taking your time to participate in what I believe is a very important gathering. And I'm excited that this gathering is here. But understand that your charge today, beyond listening to our speakers and the presentations, is not simply to hear a summary of issues going on. It is to think about dreaming. It is to think about forecasting. It is to think about how do we innovate and create and think creatively about those things that we can do to push the economy of this region forward, right? That's what we come to do today, not just to get a summary of what's going on in the region. Y'all with me on that? So I really want to thank, right, all of our distinguished speakers who are here as well. Included among those, I want to take a shout out to our two distinguished professors, our own Jose Martinez, who's co-director of the Cal State University Dominguez Hills Economics Institute, who's associate professor of economics. Jose, wave to the crowd and say hello, right? He's chair of our accounting, finance, and economics department. Also, his co-director for the CSUDH Economics Institute is Dr. Finwin Prager. Dr. Prager, wave to the crowd. So I also want to recognize and thank today's conference organizers, including Dr. Wynn. Where is your deanship at? There's Dr. Wynn right here, my friend. Please give it up, Dr. Wynn. He's our Dean of the College of Business Administration and Public Policy, many of you have known. And I want you to say hello to our Vice President for University Advancement. This is Vice President Kerry Stewart right here. He's part of our team. And all the members of the Conference Planning Committee. So with all the members of the Conference Planning Committee who've had a hand in putting this together, right, you always hear about what didn't go right, this sign is not quite right, whatever, but you rarely hear the praise. Everybody who had a fingernail or a hand in helping to plan this event, please stand for me. Please stand. Give it up for them if you would. Give it up. The California State University Dominguez Hills is also pleased to partner with UCLA Anderson to present an economic forecast that specifically focuses on the South Bay. And as the report will reveal, and as our excellent panel of speakers I think will demonstrate, this South Bay is a very influential and vital region in the greater Southern California economy. But I think that I want us to be not a hidden gem, because if we are a hidden gem, it is not just people's fault for not knowing, it is partly our fault for not leveraging the knowledge and information that we create to let people know why what we do in this South Bay region is important. It is our job to seize that narrative, and I hope forums like this help us begin to do that. As the report really talks about, it is not just that we want to be influential, it is that we also want to be on the cutting edge of change. We manage this university in a way that not only seeks to follow the leader, but to define and frame the discourse. I want to set the curve, not follow the leader. So I want this forum and other forums we will have like this in the future to help us set the curve about what we need to do about the economics of this region that then sets a pace for the rest of the state and indeed the nation. And so as you undoubtedly already know, companies within the South Bay region represent every major economic engine in this whole region. We're talking about healthcare, we're talking about aerospace, entertainment, transportation, trade, technology, energy, right? And in many cases, the South Bay are the leaders in those industries. But one of our most critical resources, of course, are our people. Our people. Leaders, ladies and gentlemen, are only good as the work produced by the people who work with and for them. I understand that as a president. I hope you understand that even as the executives that you are. But we really want to acknowledge and support our people. And also, those who are our customer base and the next generation of workers who will be there, much like our students will be. And the success of our pre-K programs, K-12 schools, regional community colleges, and our four-year colleges and universities will determine in part the success of your business and our economy. And you'll be challenged to look beyond the sometimes myopic view of academic major alone and understand that both the academic and the co-curricular learning, the academic and the co-curricular learning, and I emphasize co-curricular because 20, 30, 40, maybe 50% of what a college student will learn in their years at an institution, they will learn outside of the four walls of the classroom in co-curricular ways. And some of that each of you are making possible by providing internship opportunities, et cetera, for our students, so we certainly appreciate that. So we all have a role to play. And it is why we are pursuing similar partnership opportunities, I think, within the fields of entertainment, digital media, technology, transportation, and the blockchain. Skills necessary to meet the projected workforce demand of our region, which we know is growing and changing dynamic. This is not a static place. It is a dynamic place. And it changes, and it is our job to keep pace with what that change is. So I think it's fair to say that I'm proud of the work that Cal State University Dominguez Hills is doing to advance the vitality of the South Bay economic region. We are proud to be partners in this region with all of you, as together we help to stimulate the vitality and the creativity and the innovation that comes out of here. So while there's work yet to be done, the future, I think, looks promising, and we are on the right path. Cal State University Dominguez Hills looks forward to continuing our work with all of you and truly make a difference in the lives of the students in our community. So on behalf of our Chancellor Timothy White and the California State University system, all of my cabinet and administrators, our deans and academic faculty, on behalf of all of our students here in the Turtle Nation, I say welcome again to the California State University Dominguez Hills. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Parham, for that warm welcome and for the family treatment here on the campus and for lifting the business spirits here in the South Bay and indeed throughout all of Southern California. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to direct your attention to the screen to view today's speaker schedule. As you can see, a full program. We're going to move things right along. I'd like to introduce our very first speaker now, Dr. Jose Martinez, the co-director of the Economics Institute and associate professor of economics right here at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. He currently teaches financial forecasting, microeconomic and macroeconomic principles, as well as international business within the accounting, finance, and economics department here at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. His research interests are labor economics, applied micro, migration, crime, and time series econometrics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Dr. Jose Martinez.
Thank you very much. There you go. So today we're going to be talking about housing and transportation trends and some highlights, something new. There's going to be beer, right? Because, so those of you who have been here before, we know that as before, we divided the South Bay housing market into two areas, the coastal communities and the inland communities. Beautiful Torrance, of for the coastal communities. first of all, to analyze the different factors that are going to play a role in this market, mainly jobs and income growth. That's going to be a positive factor. It's California. Everybody loves to be here. So that's going to be keep playing a factor in the housing market, no matter what happened. Negative issues, affordability, especially for millennials. That's going to be an issue. It's going to affect mobility and interest rates and the tax reform. That's going to impact the housing market in the near term. On the supply side, we have nothing new. There's not much construction, so housing construction is inadequate. In the state, about 100,000 unit deficit. And the approval process is too long and too costly. So in case you don't know, this is where things stand right now. For September 2018, sales, median prices, and price per square feet is higher in coastal communities. No surprise there, right? If you look at the trends in sales, median prices, and actually for my students of Finance 484, where are you? Okay, this is going to be in the quiz. You notice there's a negative trend in sales and a slow growth in prices and similar trend in price per square foot. So this is what we see in terms of the trends and the forecast in housing for the two areas. So we saw a big drop in sales, especially for inland communities, and the forecast is a big drop for sales in the coastal communities. In terms of prices, we saw big gains, especially for inland communities, but the forecast is for moderated increases in prices. And for the similar story for price per square feet. So to summarize, moderate growth in housing prices, decline in sales, and affordability is going to be the key. Tax reform and the Fed response should start affecting the housing demand even more. So to some people in the South Bay, not you, but to some, the alternative is to rent instead of owning a home. But things are not that different in the rental market. Almost 60% of renters in California are burdened. The way that they define to be moderate burden is if they spend more than 30% of their income in housing. And severe burden will be 50% or more of your income. So 60% of people in California are burdened in the rental market. If we look at changes, you can see that the median renter income has gone up, but median rent has gone up even further. And affordability or the overall burden has gone up also. And if we zoom in at the county level, we can see a similar picture. For every county in Southern California, burden rate is almost 60%. So that's a serious issue. And in terms of the changes, you see the same idea, median renter income gone up, but rents have gone up even further. The burden rates are even higher than before. So we should think what should be the solution, and there are some propositions that try to address this issue, the issue of housing in general, but I believe there's no single solution to the problem, and most likely the solution will not likely come from government. Might likely it's going to come from a market. So what are the implications? Assuming that the economy keeps growing, affordability issues is going to play a bigger role in mobility, and that's going to affect the potential for the housing market. For owners, renters, and millennials and commuters, affordability issues is going to be the key, and traffic is going to continue to be horrible. So for employers, it's going to become even harder to attract and retain workers. So that's going to be a very severe issue for employers. So one potential solution, and just one of them, could be telecommuting and more flexible scheduling. This is a live picture from the 91 in Corona. Seriously, that's a... But we at the South Bay Economics Institute partner with the South Bay Workforce Investment Board and the South Bay Cities Council of Government to study telework and flexible practices in the South Bay. And by the way, we have a conference coming up in January 16th, so mark your calendars. We're going to be talking about telework and flexible scheduling. So what are the benefits of telework and flexible schedule? These are some of the benefits according to the literature and surveys. The main ones for larger entities is about compliance with the AQMD, reduce traffic congestion, improve work-life balance, improve housing options, and increase productivity. Productivity is always a major issue for employers. They're always thinking, how can I make sure that the employee is working if it's at home, for example? But I think there's training to be done, and they can really learn how to manage that type of work environment. If we look at workers in LA in terms of commuting in 2013, you can see that, for example, the workers in LA, most of them come from LA County, no surprise there, but some of them come from Orange, San Diego, San Bernardino, Riverside, Ventura. Most of them arrive by car. Some of them use public transportation, and a few of them work from home. And the median travel time, feel sorry for the people from Ventura and San Diego, this is the median time, 90 minutes. So more than half of them drive for more than 90 minutes. And if you look in 2016, not much difference in any of them, not even the travel time. If we look at the specific cities in the South Bay, and this is for the average time to work, the travel time is the same story. It doesn't change much. In the last 8 years, you can see the changes in the last 8 years, not major change. As we said, when we look at the county level, same story, no significant changes in car usage, public transportation. We see a slightly upward trend in working from home, which is good news, I guess, but only for some counties, and a slightly upward trend in carpooling rates. Finally, for the percentage of commuters that drive for more than 1 hour, shows a very, very slightly increase. So lately, we have seen housing prices going up, and the forecast is maybe for a lower growth rate. Commuting times keep going up at a very slow rate. So what is the solution to this problem? So maybe there's no single solution to the traffic issue and the housing issue. As economists, we always believe that it's about incentives. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that it's going to be about government, but people, workers, employers coming up with a solution. As humans, we have a tendency not to react to slow-moving events. That's the truth. So as we sit in traffic, and every year the commute gets 1 minute longer, we don't react to things. We just take it for granted that it's a horrible commute, and everybody takes it. So maybe we need a shock to the system, or at least we need a beer, right? So now it is my pleasure to introduce my co-author and co-director of the South Bay Economics Institute, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Phing-Wing Prager, is an assistant professor of public administration here at Dominguez Hills. His research includes policy and economics of disasters, particularly environmental and terrorism policy, and the impacts of regional economics and transportation system. Please welcome Dr. Prager to the stage to present on entrepreneurship in South Bay.
Thank you so much to Dr. Jose Martinez. He's really an excellent colleague, very gracious. So Jose always gives a really great talk. And so I thought I'd put a bit of extra practice in this year. And I was sat there on Sunday night, family movie night. I've got a captive audience. I'll give my talk now. So I went through it. It was feeling good. I felt good. I asked my wife. She's like, yeah, that's pretty good. I asked my daughter. She goes, well, it's a bit boring. So I've changed it a bit. Hopefully it's a little bit more interesting. And I love this stuff. I find our work both fascinating and rewarding. Jose and I are both really proud to have launched and built the South Bay Economics Institute. We're now in our third year, and we've already brought in nearly $300,000 in grant funding, which supports cutting-edge faculty research, some of which Jose just presented, as well as student scholarship and community service in the South Bay, and we're really proud of what we're building here. This paper is a really good example of many of these elements, and we've actually brought in more faculty from the College of Business Administration and Public Policy to work on projects with us. So Dr. Hugo Asensio came to us with this idea about studying the relationship between governments and entrepreneurship in each city in Southern California. We said, yeah, we'll go for it. This sounds fantastic. We had amazing research assistants from John Tumora, who is an MPA graduate of our program. Excellent student, did a fantastic job. So government and entrepreneurship doesn't, where I'm from, it doesn't usually fit, right? So we've got our government worker on the left there. If you've seen Yes Minister, that's actually what they look like in real life. And entrepreneurs, do they match all the time? Well, all the government workers I've met in this region have been really dynamic and engaging, and so actually they probably look more like this. I can see, that looks a bit like Fran Fulton from Torrance there, riding along the beach. So to highlight some of these connections, we hosted a conference on campus where we invited both local entrepreneurs and local government officials, policymakers, to come and discuss what they saw as working for them on both sides and how each of them could improve in terms of the resources provided to them by government, but also what entrepreneurs really needed to help them thrive. And I just want to really thank here Provost Mike Spagner, who came to speak at the event, and Mike Grimshaw from the Entrepreneurial Institute, who did a fantastic job helping us organize the event. Really helpful, and it just shows the community that we have here on campus. Now, one comment really stood out for me. One of the entrepreneurs that we'd invited said, working in this region is like drinking from a broken fire hydrant. There's just so much information and so many resources that are provided to us that it's almost hard to know what to use. And so we really wanted to think about, well, is this picture the same across the state? Is it the same across the US? And it seems like it might be. California is still ranked first in startup activity. So don't believe all those rumors in Washington, D.C. California is still number one. We're still driving the national economy in many different ways. We're 9th in Main Street entrepreneurship, so that's not just high tech, that's also high street. We're 14th in terms of the growth of entrepreneurship, so if all those other states didn't come and steal our new ventures, then maybe we'd be growing even more. There's a little joke for the economic development crowd there. Like to keep it niche. LA is a massive part of that within the state of California. So we're third overall in terms of the proportion of new entrepreneurs within the country. We also, third in terms of the financings of new enterprises. And that's both in terms of the number and also the dollar value. So we're fourth overall in terms of the dollar value. So the news is generally good at the LA level, and in terms of the South Bay as well, we've clearly got a huge number of thriving entrepreneurial businesses in this region, and this is really highlighted in the report. This is taken from the UCLA Anderson Economic Forecast, South Bay Economic Forecast report that is put together and will be presented later. But you can just see the wealth of different companies from different industries. So we've got the Silicon Beach phenomenon sort of spilling down into the South Bay. We've got our sort of traditional industries in terms of aerospace, healthcare, all being, biotech, all being supported by investment from venture capitalists. So we're doing really well in this region. So back to our gushing standpipe. Let's dig into this a bit more. What are we actually doing? Well, I want to first celebrate the amazing work that's done on this campus. We recently were awarded our 10-year accreditation by the Western, I don't know the full acronym, but it's Western Schools, Colleges, something. But they are our accreditation board, and they gave us the full maximum 10 years, not 7, not 8, but 10. And one thing stood out to me on that report, that they noticed a really strong entrepreneurial spirit on campus. Now that's thanks to people like Mike Grimshaw, who I mentioned earlier, Gary Polk and the Toro Incubator, Dean Kim McNutt at the College of Extended and International Education, that are really providing these opportunities. They're looking into, for example, a blockchain certificate that will be talked about a bit later. Our own Dean, Dean Joseph Wen, clearly our President Thomas Palms, embodying this entrepreneurial spirit. So we're really excited to be part of this broader network that's providing resources to the South Bay cities. We also have within the South Bay cities, we've got incubators, we've got cities running business visitation programs, art districts, art walks, downtown areas, business improvement districts. We've got fantastic institutions like the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, who help to fund studies that we've done, and also specifically on blockchain as well as telework. The South Bay Cities Council of Government, fantastic organization, as well as local chambers of commerce and industry associations. So we're really fortunate to have that intellectual infrastructure in place in our region. And so the question that we have is all this effort working? Is that standpipe effective? Is all that information helpful? Does all the effort pay off? And so that's what we've tried to capture in this study using a quantitative analysis. So we collected data from all the cities in Southern California. So there's 215 cities, not just about their economic development programs, but also about entrepreneurial activity in each of their cities. We also then conducted numerous phone calls with and interviews with ED professionals in the region and in cities to try and corroborate that evidence. And actually, it shows how good our research team was that when we cross-referenced that data, we got a 99% correct hit rate on the data that we'd found from web searches, which is pretty impressive. So who are the winners? Well, I don't want to single out people too much, but Hermosa Beach and Torrance both provided the most resources in terms of our economic development scores. But as you can see, across the South Bay region, we've got a really strong selection of cities that are providing lots of resources to our local businesses. And that's only to be something to be held up as a positive. So what did we find from this study? So we ran regression analyses. I won't go into them, and I won't bore you like I bored my daughter so much. But the findings were that we tend to have more economic development programs when there are larger cities, no surprise, higher levels of employment, the presence of colleges. So the fact that we have institutions like this in the region is a really big advantage, and it's something that government officials might look into in those regions that don't have as many educational resources. But maybe more importantly, well, what do these programs do? Well, interestingly, it's not always what we'd expect. So even though we're looking at entrepreneurial activity, actually there tends to be more economic development programs correlated with higher average firm size. So larger businesses are being supported. This is over the whole region of Southern California. And this is especially the case when direct assistance through tax incentives are provided. Curiously, we also found lower levels of female ownership in those cities with more economic development programs. That's a statistically significant result. We're not sure exactly why, but it's interesting nonetheless. And particularly interesting because it kind of conflicts with, this is data from the annual survey of entrepreneurs across the whole US of which businesses are making use of these resources. And clearly female-owned businesses are taking more advantage of these resources. So there's a bit of an interesting finding there. We'll have to dig deeper. So thank you very much for your time. It's fantastic to see the room full and such a fantastic energy here. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Finwan Prager and Dr. Jose Martinez. And special recognition to Dr. Prager's daughter as well for fine-tuning that excellent presentation. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is William Yu, an economist at UCLA Anderson Forecast, which conducts research on the regional, state, and national economies. He's a frequent contributor to media coverage on the economy, and this afternoon he's going to share with us what we can expect ahead here in the South Bay region. Please welcome William Yu.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm very excited and very honored to be here to present South Bay Economic Outlook. I know many of you are very concerned about recent stock market decline. So does that mean the recession is around the corner? Short answer is no. All right. Okay. So here, let me show you. Anderson Forecast predict that U.S. economy remain robust this year, 2018, and will slow down a little bit in 2019. So in this chart, let me show you two most important economic indicators. The blue bar is GDP, quarterly GDP growth. And as we can see on the far right, we had these recent 2 quarters. Second quarter, as we all know, is 4.2%, very good. And the third quarter, right now we don't have an official number release yet, but according Atlanta Fed, we had this estimate, and right now it's 3.6%. So it's still very good, all right. And in the chart, you can see the red line, which is year-over-year payroll job growth for the U.S. So as you can see, over the past year or two, we stayed at a very healthy level, I would say, 1.7, 1.8%. All right. So based on our forecast, our GDP growth this year will be solid 3%, maybe a little bit more, north of the 3%, and next year will be around 2%. All right, so let's talk about California economy. So in this chart, the red line is the year-over-year U.S. payroll job growth, as I just showed you, and the blue line is California's payroll job growth. All right, so as we can see, over the past several years, usually California economy outgrow the nation, and mostly it's due to the tech boom in Bay Area. And right now, recent 2 years, we can see that kind of gap has been converged. All right, so here right now, let's talk about South Bay. So here I show you the total private sector jobs in South Bay area. So as you can see, over the past several years, we had this growth steadily. And in 2017, the annual growth is about 1.4%. Compared to 2016. And so in last year, because that's the only data we have up to the zip code level, is 445,000 jobs. Right, and this is the annual average wage of a worker in South Bay in blue bar, and for Los Angeles total area in yellow bar. So basically we can see, by and large, there's an upward sloping trend for the wage. It's growing, and South Bay's wage is higher than Los Angeles. Okay, so right now let's dive a little bit deeper to the sector. Okay, here I show you the total wage paid to the workers in sectors in South Bay. So the data is for third quarter of 2017. So as we can see, the largest sector in terms of the total wage, and you can say the total output, economic output is proportion to the total wage, is $1.5 billion for manufacturing sector. So a year is about $6 billion. So it's far larger than the second largest one, which is a professional, scientific, and technical sector, $0.8 billion. So it's very good. All right, so right now, let's take a look at a total job employee in sectors in South Bay. So again, the first one, number one, is again manufacturing sector, about 67,000 jobs last year. And the second largest one is healthcare and social service, about 50,000 jobs. All right, so right now let's talk about the job growth in the short run and in the long run. So in this chart, the blue bar represents the job growth from 2016 to 2017, and the yellow bar represents the annual growth, compound growth from 2011 to 2017. So as we can see, the healthcare sector is growing like crazy. Yeah. So last year is about like 9% job growth. And this is nationwide phenomenal. Yeah. So healthcare, in terms of job growth, has been growing for a long time for the nation in Los Angeles, in South Bay as well. But the problem, later I will show you another chart. The problem is the average wage in this sector is not quite high. Actually, later I will show you it's about like $45,000 a year. So the second sector, professional, scientific, and technical sector, last year is 6% growth, very good. Yeah, and this sector, they had a very high wage, so it's very good things for South Bay. And finally, I want to talk about manufacturing. We know, based on the data I showed you before, manufacturing is the largest, employer, largest job creator, the most important sector in South Bay. But last year, the total job growth is only 0.5%. Okay. However, don't be sad because we had this because the data we have up down to this South Bay level, we only had up to 2017. But we have this whole county level data up to August 2018. So based on the data, we can see, so we can say this detailed sector, aerospace job growth for the whole Los Angeles County, and we all know most of land is located in South Bay area, is 5.2%. So from August 2017 to August 2018 is 5.2%, from 36,000 to 38,000 jobs. So that's a very, very good news because the job pay very well. And you might say, why is that? Why is that? Because usually we know manufacturing job has been down, especially in California, for a long time. Why we see this kind of very strong growth? I believe the main reason is because the new administration's policy to expand our federal defense budget. So as long as that policy doesn't change, we will see this kind of growth in this sector. And transportation also very good, 2.6%, computer sector, 2.6%, all in manufacturing. All right, so here, let me show you the average annual wage by sector. So you see these four happy face, they represent, as you know, a high paying sector, like manufacturing above $90,000, professional, scientific, technical, way about probably $110,000, and then information sector, of course, this kind of tech boom, information sector is doing very well, and later on we will talk about that in our panel discussion, and finance sector. So we all know this sector, they are related to high human capital, high skill. Yeah. Okay, so right now, let me show you some kind of visual demonstration. So in this chart, I try to calculate the percentage of the manufacturing job over total payroll job, private sector job by zip code. okay, in South Bay area. So the blue color represent higher percentage. Okay, red color represent higher percentage and blue color represent low percentage. So the darker the color represent a higher percentage for red, and the dark blue one represent the low one. So we can see basically, let's see here, El Segundo. Last year, its job growth is 2.3%. Right now, total job is 64,000 jobs. So I believe El Segundo is like a crown jewel in South Bay because they produce a lot of job and high-paying job in manufacturing and other sector as well. Later I will show you. Next one, this is Hawthorne. Okay, so when we talk about this the entrepreneurship, we see some kind of high activity of venture capital funding in these two areas. So Hawthorne is all about SpaceX. So everybody knows SpaceX, right? And because this company, this flying company, so it kind of bring up all the community. So can you see the number is kind of crazy? Last year, 3.4% job growth. And if we look at long run from 2011 to 2017, every year is about 5% job growth in Hawthorne. Okay, so SpaceX, one of the largest, startup company in the world, totally transformed this city. And a little bit north, another city, Inglewood. Usually, we used to be Inglewood is kind of falling behind, but right now it's changing as well. Last year, job growth is 9.6%. And if we look at 2011 to 2017, every year is about 5% growth. So we all know there's a lot of exciting things going on in Inglewood, like a new transportation line to airport, and of course the new building of the stadium, especially the Rams doing very well, right? So that will be very exciting, totally transforming of this city. Okay, so this is another sector, professional, scientific, and technical job sector. So basically, we can see the kind of coastal, like the south end of the Silicon Beach, like El Segundo. Yeah, very high density of that kind of high-paying job. Okay, and this is information sector, similar. Yeah. Okay. So here, this is another density chart for education. So in this chart, I calculate the percentage of the resident in that zip code area had a college degree or above graduate school degree. So we can see mostly coastal area had high human capital. Yeah. If we remember the previous chart, you can see some kind of high correlation between those kind of high-paying industry, which is located in this kind of high human capital in area. So I fully agree with our president just said, the human people are the most important asset for local economy, and human with high human capital, will bring our shared prosperity to the local economy. So hopefully, over time, we will see more darker color, blue color in this area in Los Angeles. Okay, conclusion. All right. So South Bay economy will continue to grow in 2018 and 2019, and aerospace industry is a resilient driver to our local economy. Manufacturing, professional, scientific, and technical and information sectors provide a high-paying job located in regions with high human capital. So it's very good. And finally, Hawthorne and Inglewood are growing fast and transforming because of the SpaceX and our new building of the NFL stadium. Okay, so that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William Yu from the UCLA Anderson Forecast, for that upbeat look at what's happening here in the South Bay. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to introduce this afternoon's speaker panel. And each speaker will give a presentation, and then we'll convene on the stage for a panel discussion. Our first presentation now will be from Bree Nguyen, the head of talent partnerships for Facebook. In her role at Facebook, she leads a team that works with celebrities, actors, creators, and public figures to utilize Facebook and Instagram in impactful ways. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of likes on this one. Now, she also works closely with the product development teams to develop best-in-class product experiences on Facebook for media and talent partners, and was on the original team that developed and launched Facebook Live, which is a terrific feature, I must say. Bree Nguyen is a magna cum laude graduate of guess where? Yup, Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, where she earned a BS in Business Administration Finance. You know, some of us graduate cum laude, summa cum laude, magna cum laude. Others graduate thank the laude. I think that was my case. But currently, ladies and gentlemen, she also serves on the board of the College of Business Administration and Public Policy here at Dominguez Hills. Please welcome, familiar name here on the campus, Bree Nguyen.
Hi. I really only do these to grow my Instagram followers, so he's right. But no, let's talk about the future. Hold on, let me just pull up my notes here. I'm digital here. We're going to talk about the future of media. I'm going to jump right into it. Okay, wait. Click, okay. When I think about the future of media, I really think about it in two different sectors, and that's really the content and the distribution. And actually, when you think of the history of every content business going all the way back, it really plays out in two different phases in these two different channels. So phase one is the distribution of everything. I call it laying the pipes, right? The infrastructure of things. As technology goes, what is the delivery mechanism for content? And then phase two is once all that infrastructure is in place and the pipes are laid, what are the creative people doing to reimagine what content could be like within that infrastructure? So a quick example would be, you know, back in the olden days, we had TVs with antennas, analog TV, fuzzy, all of that. With literal cable being laid and plugged into, we all got access to HD video, HD TV. And the content producers re-examined how to produce sports, how to produce movies, special effects that completely changed how they produce and we receive content. So thinking about today and what the future might be, let's focus on distribution. Distribution first is really been a lot of everything having to do with the development of mobile phones. That is our major platform right now, and our access to connectivity and internet. Here's a map of our data connectivity now all around the world. 5G is coming too. 5G is completely going to change our lives in the next couple of years. Just to give you an example, the jump, just to remind you, I mean, is the jump from 3G to 4G is what allowed us to watch video on our phones and create video on our phones. So the jump from 4G to 5G is going to be just as transformative. And actually, 78% of the world's mobile data traffic will be video by 2021. And you're already seeing this play out in the way we view content now. There were 34 million cord nevers as of 2017, meaning they never had cable TV, always internet, always streaming. So this is the present. So we see this trend of connectivity play out on Facebook. So it started with text, right? That's where content producers did. As the connectivity got stronger, it got 2G, 3G, it turned into photos. Now we're in videos. We can all stream our videos all day. So what's the future? It's virtual reality and augmented reality. This is the media platform of the future. And in fact, it's built into Facebook's 10-year product roadmap. This is the media platform of the future. Video is our short-term goal. So you can see this play out, and in fact, sorry, that's a video. But in fact, 55 million headsets will be played out, will be in households by 2022. And so I'm going to show you a quick video of our current headset right now.
Oculus Quest is an all-in-one VR system. It's just you and your hands, completely free and immersed. With 6 degrees of freedom, state-of-the-art optics, and built-in audio, you can forget about wires, PCs, and phones. Oculus Quest is ready to play when you are. The headset relies on 4 ultra-wide-angle sensors to map your environment as you navigate through it. And with Oculus Insight tracking, every move you make in the real world translates right into the game you're playing. Combine that with Oculus Touch controllers, and the game is at your fingertips. So when you grab, swing, or cast a spell, you'll feel the power of every gesture. The next level of VR gaming is finally here. Introducing Oculus Quest.
So this is super exciting, and this is what's available today. And you see it all revolves around gaming and that kind of functionality, because gaming gives us the creativity to explore a lot of different things right now. But think about 10 years from now, those headsets aren't going to be clunky anymore. They'll go shrink, 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 shrink down, and the image will just get crisper, more true to life, more real, just as our phones got smaller, more powerful. Well, I guess they're getting bigger now, but you know what I mean? So given that, if VR is our platform for the future, what does that mean for content? Reimagining content in a VR world and an immersive world is really interesting. And we're seeing a lot of things play out right now on the platform in these early versions of Oculus and gaming. And you can start to extrapolate like what that's going to mean for content producers in the future. First, there's been more content buyers than ever today. If now is the time to become a video producer or a content producer, actually. There used to be only 4 networks, 4 studios. Now there's a whole network of digital publishers, media publishers, streaming, everything. Now is the time to be a content producer. Facebook's not even on this list, but we're also a buyer. So this is how content will change in these 3 fundamental ways. Content will be highly personalized, it will play out in real time, and be extremely interactive and immersive. Again, we're already seeing these behaviors now, but you can't imagine the full effect of it without the hardware and the infrastructure catching up too. So we can start to extrapolate what that might look like based on what we're seeing right now, and I'll go into each one of these. So first, personalized content, what do I mean? The World Series is going on right now. Some of those commentators are not my cup of tea. What if Kevin Hart was commentating that for me? And it just knew me right away. And like, that's what I wanted. But my mom wanted, my mom is here in the audience, but my mom wanted a different comedian or whatever. It would be personalized to you. Think about your favorite rom-com. I always want the couple to get together at the end, but my friend might want the more dramatic ending. You'll actually be able to experience that, and the content producers will think about different scripts and different personalized things that way. You can hack this together now, but imagine if the sets and the VR sets and your TV actually just knows you right away and delivers exactly what you want when you want. Playing out in real time, we're seeing a lot of this, and this is really interesting. If any of you are content in the creative business, I'd love to talk to you about this. So one, you see it a lot really in the gaming sector. Gaming and esports is set to take over live sports in the next 5 or 10 years, if you didn't know that. Huge thing. I don't laugh at it as just, why are you watching people play video games? Because what's actually happening is viewers are watching players play out stories in real time. That's what's happening. Over and over and over, it is a different story, same game, different story every time. And when you extrapolate that behavior and the amount of viewers that are experiencing it that way, can you imagine watching your favorite drama or your favorite, or it's Halloween right now, horror movie play out in real time? It's gonna be incredible. And again, you're already seeing that consumer behavior with people watching gaming. We're also seeing it in a few shows. So Scum Austin is a Facebook original show that we've produced, and it's a teen drama, and in it, you can actually follow the characters on Instagram. You can see their updates all through the week. You see their photos from school. You see them commenting on each other through the week, and you see this drama play out in real time, following with the episode every week at the end of the week of what happened. So you're actually following the characters all throughout the week. That's already happening on Facebook. You start to imagine what that looks like when your device is very interactive with you. The more creative people than me will get really have a lot of fun with that. And then finally, interactive and immersive. So this is one you can start to experience in virtual reality. This really means you are an active participant in the content. Jurassic World actually filmed the movie this way, the last Jurassic World. They filmed it just like a regular movie, and then they put 360 cameras on every camera as well and filmed all this bonus content. They ended up having nowhere to put the content because we're not caught up on the infrastructure level, so we just upload it one at a time. But in the future, what could happen is you could watch the movie in virtual reality, be in there, and you get to choose that I want to watch this scene from T-Rex's head. I want to stand right here and watch the T-Rex eat Chris Pratt, like from here, you know? And you have that choice of being, I didn't see the movie, did that happen? No. But you'll have the choice to like interact in it. And later, what's really interesting is actors reacting to you. What if you were in the movie? What if you actually got to move dinosaurs around and Chris Pratt actually reacted to you? That is gonna happen, and that will happen in the next 5 or 10 years. So real quick, this all talk about virtual reality and you get to play with it reminds me of, there's an old story of the first movie that was ever shown, that train story. So it's like 1895 or something, and they're showing a train in a theater, and the train's coming at the screen, and everybody's so convinced the train's gonna leap off the screen into them that they run out of the theater. And now we laugh at that, like how ridiculous, that's crazy. And then I wanna show you this video that I took on Saturday of my niece playing with the Oculus Go.
It feels like I got one.
I look at this and I laugh because I'm like, this is our train moment. Because when we look back at this, at the arc of the history of media, we're gonna think, oh, what a natural progression, just from newspapers to TV, newspapers to radio to TV. But right now, we're still like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm experiencing this in virtual reality. And I showed this particular one because we have Goes, Oculus Goes at the reception afterwards, so everybody can have this exact train moment as well. Thank you.
Ray, thank you very, very much. And I want to help you with your Instagram followers. Are you What the Bree, or let's see, there's Breezy Wheezy. We'll get that information from you later so we can take care of that. All right, terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's bring to the stage our next speaker, Heidi Peace, the co-founder of LA Blockchain Lab, a very hot topic right now, blockchain. She's the CEO and co-founder of Proof of Art and Home Sidekick. She focuses on helping develop the Southern California blockchain ecosystem, as well as promoting and funding artists using blockchain and providing peer-to-peer mortgage lending opportunities using blockchain. In addition, she's a guest lecturer at UCLA as well as USC, and she's with us here today. She'll provide insight on the purpose of blockchain and perspectives on the Southern California blockchain ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Heidi Peace.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. And I just wanted to echo the President Parham's comments about respect for humanity. I didn't really put this into my speech today because I only have 10 minutes to explain what blockchain is and make you all blockchain experts. But really, blockchain is as much a social movement, if not more a social movement, than it is a technological movement. And it really is about respecting our fellow humans around the world and how do we get more people How do we democratize accessibility to knowledge and power like we've never seen before? So I really commend the school here in this recognition for humanity, and thank you so much for having me. I also wanted to quickly say, how many of you are blockchain kind of experts, or you could explain what blockchain is? Okay, all right, that's what I thought. So originally I wasn't really even going to talk about the technology, but I figured probably most of you will want to hear about it. I'm not a technologist. I didn't even have a Facebook account last year. This is how quickly the space has propelled me into technology, and now I speak around the world. I just came back from speaking at the United Nations about what blockchain is. But please don't ding me on this card, because it is a little difficult to get what blockchain is in 10 minutes. I'm certain, however, so just really quickly, why am I here? LA Blockchain Lab, we are a partnership of government, business, and academia focused on building a sustainable blockchain ecosystem in Southern California. So I'm very excited to share with you the perspective of the businesses, academia, and governments that I've experienced here in Southern California around blockchain and from actually around the world. So maybe most of you have heard about blockchain. How many of you have heard about Bitcoin? Okay. Right. All right. Where is my clicker? All right. So there is, of course, everybody's heard about Bitcoin. Last year in 2017, the market cap, the cryptocurrency market cap, grew from less than 20 billion to nearly 800 billion. The average cryptocurrency price rate changed, for the most popular cryptocurrencies, changed to over 14,000%. What took Bezos, Zuckerberg, and Gates years to become billionaires in the blockchain crypto world, some entrepreneurs, it only took them less than a year, less than 6 months, and there's even one where it took him less than a month. And startups are raising billions of dollars through a new type of crowdfunding mechanism, some raising hundreds of millions of dollars within 24 hours and not even having a product to show. Actually, the largest fund was $4 billion, and it came from a company here in Southern California, out of Silicon Valley. We actually call that part of the Silicon Valley Blockchain Beach. Not to mention publicly traded companies having nothing to do with this technology. Their value of their stock increased just by merely putting the name blockchain into the name of their company. The most infamous of them being the Long Island Blockchain Iced Tea Company, whose value of stock increased by 300%. And they're under SEC investigation now, by the way. Unfortunately, this year we also saw a lot of people lose their money due to cryptocurrency the valuation, price volatility. There were a lot of scams and hacking of sites where people keep their cryptocurrencies. So let's talk a little bit about nomenclature. When we hear blockchain, a lot of us immediately think Bitcoin or these ICOs, but I just wanted to make clear that there are actually 4 different areas within blockchain. First of all, what we've mostly been hearing about in the news are these things called cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin, Ether, and Litecoin. Theoretically, these digital currencies may one day be used like any other currency, replacing the need for your credit card, PayPal, or Venmo. And because they are digital, they have their own unique identifiers that can be used to track every transaction associated with that particular cryptocurrency, similar to your credit card today. But today, they are mostly used as a speculative vehicle, a storage of value, much like buying stock or any other type of investment asset. Then we have an ICO, or an initial coin offering. It's a new type of fundraising event which originally allowed for both accredited and non-accredited investors to purchase coins or tokens of a startup at a discounted rate, with the hopes that as the company grows and its network effect grows, so does the value of the coin. However, many of these token holders quickly liquidated their tokens on a secondary market where they made 100 to 1,000 or more greater returns. So actually, currently, the SEC is pretty much declaring that these ICO tokens are securities, and as such, there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty. Not to mention, again, unfortunately, there are a lot of scams. So I think cryptocurrencies and ICOs are a fascinating subject, and I believe that blockchain, the underlying technology, however, has greater financial and social impact in the longer term. And actually, you might ask, who's even building on blockchain today? Well, last year in the United States alone, companies were investing at about $800 million on building and improving their services using blockchain. This year, that number is estimated to be $2 billion. So we are seeing that there is significant growth in this space. So let's get to the fun stuff, the mechanics. Again, bear in mind, I am not an engineer, so I'm going to do my best to keep this interesting while still at the same time explaining this very difficult technological advancement. So we all know what a ledger is, right? Transactions are time-stamped and recorded on a ledger, which is generally auditable and irreversible, and it's typically maintained by some centralized source. Usually this could be a large institution. And this centralized source validates and records each of our transactions on their ledger, which in the digital world, if you think about it, all of our transactions are actually our data points. Unfortunately, in this digital world, these centralized institutions are often subject to being hacked, making mistakes, or actually even misusing our own data. So with blockchain, transactions on the ledger are first made anonymous, and then the ledger is decentralized and distributed to hundreds of thousands of computer nodes around the world. We call these computer nodes miners. These miners are members of a peer-to-peer network, which can both be public or private. And now the difference is the network of miners is responsible for validating and recording these transactions rather than a centralized source. So then afterwards, every single transaction has to be validated by using cryptography. It is a form of a secure computer language using mathematical puzzles which are nearly impossible to solve and require a lot of computer processing power and is basically very costly. But once a transaction is validated by one miner and that computational puzzle is solved, then just like algebra, once you've figured the calculation, it's easy to go back and double check the work. There has to be a majority of miners or a consensus of these miners within the network. They go back and they double check the math, and once everybody agrees, then they finally confirm and validate that transaction. These miners then, for all of the costs that they've invested, they get rewarded with a cryptocurrency. So that's why you can see there is this circular economy. Then that approved transaction is bundled together into a block and placed on a ledger, and then that block is chained to a prior block of transactions. So the ledger and all of our data that is contained on the ledger is now more secure than it has ever been and hack resistant because, one, they use the multiple uses of cryptography throughout. 2, it cannot be lost or manipulated by one entity. And 3, any changes are just simply cost prohibitive because any changes disrupt the entire chain of all of the subsequent transactions. And then those all need to be re-verified. So I'll give you another visualization really quickly. A transaction is put out into the system. And then the network of miners grabs that transaction and they rush off. Whoever can be the fastest to solve that algorithm solves it. The rest of the miners are made aware this one miner solved it. All the other miners looking, or at least a majority of miners, come by and they say, yes, your math works out. It's been approved. Let's put that all onto the block. The block then is added onto the chain of prior blocks. And then the transaction is complete and the miner is given a Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ether. So that's kind of the complexity of why blockchain is so secure. All right, let's get to the more interesting stuff. So why is blockchain even, who cares, right? I want to start with the current problem. We know that the internet was amazing because it could digitally transfer information without having to physically do this, right? But the problem with the internet is it was never developed with security in mind. So if you guys don't know me and I were to email you $1 without a middleman like a bank or PayPal or Venmo, how would you really trust that what I emailed you was $1? You can't. You cannot trust it without the use of a middleman. this middleman, like a bank, validates that I'm Heidi, I really have $1, and I'm really sending that dollar over, right? So they serve a purpose. These middlemen basically ensure that we can trust any digital transaction. But the problem was, in this digital universe now, we've needed these middlemen, and these middlemen have become these large institutions, and there become layers and layers of middlemen. And these middlemen themselves then are adding friction, costs, and time to transactions. And they're also, like I mentioned before, subject to being hacked, making mistakes, or actually even misusing our data. So for example, when I use Amazon, and I think we've all used Amazon, I love Amazon. Amazon's so simple. I get online, it says, yes, Heidi is Heidi, and yeah, she's sending this dollar to this vendor, and it really is $1. She didn't make it up, and yes, the dollar actually received it, and so everything's good to go. The product can be shipped, and they track all this information on the Amazon ledger. But every time a transaction occurs, as I mentioned on this ledger, there are multiple middlemen. At the very least, there's my bank, my credit card processing company, the vendor's bank, their credit card processing, Amazon, and so forth. And again, they all add layers and layers of friction. And what we're quickly realizing, again, like I said, the data is not necessarily secure. So blockchain's ledger solution protects our data and provides trust without the need of a large middleman. Again, what does that really mean? So if you think about it, the layers of middlemen, if we can reduce the layers of middlemen, we are actually now able to reduce the amount of fees, and transacting digitally becomes affordable for all. For the first time, we see the world's 2 billion unbanked and underbanked have the ability to digitally store and transfer money. Instead of it costing $35 for me to wire $100, blockchain reduces this cost to pennies. And because blockchain's ledger records a product's supply chain from its raw materials to its placement on a shelf, we will have much more information about that product, where it came from, and how it was made. It will help ensure that your diamond ring is actually not a blood diamond, or that the chocolate bar you're eating did not use child labor. Blockchain, in essence, will help reduce barriers and hopefully improve lives for all. So with all of the potential that blockchain has, there are some significant hurdles, right? The first of all, this is a nascent technology, and blockchain protocols are limited by scalability and interoperability. I know, I have my own startup, and it is very difficult to find a protocol that works. And many compare the blockchain ecosystem today with what the internet was of the early 1990s. However, there is a significant trajectory growth because now we have all of the plumbing. Also, there's a lot of question around regulation. There have been no precedences set. And for supply chain to really be effective, we need a more robust system for digitizing our physical assets. As well, businesses and governments are not accustomed to being transparent, and transparency is an underlying premise in blockchain. And perhaps the biggest hurdle of all is the lack of talent, including software engineers and business professionals. And I want to encourage every student that's in this room, please look into blockchain because we need you. And this is actually where I think Southern California has tremendous opportunity to become a blockchain innovation hub. With the help of our academic institutions, we can develop the future innovators, coders, and leaders in blockchain. We actually graduate more engineers than any other part of the country, but unfortunately, they leave to other tech hubs. However, with blockchain, we have potential to develop and keep our talent here because in the blockchain ecosystem today, Northern California is primarily focused on blockchain protocols. New York is primarily focused on financial solutions. But for all of the rest, all of the other industries such as transportation and port logistics, aerospace, healthcare, cannabis, Southern California has more industry diversity than any other part of the country. And as such, we have more opportunity for blockchain innovation, which means more jobs and a stronger economy. And this is actually what I think is the most important. For this blockchain experiment to work, we need to have all types of people involved. There's this thing called algorithmic risk and algorithmic bias. which some of you have maybe familiar with, and it actually impedes us from progressing. And as such, we need all types of people, and our greatest strength is our diversity. In conclusion, I wanted to say that by the year 2027, the World Economic Forum predicts that 10% of the global GDP will be on blockchain. And I highly, highly encourage all of you, if you want to be a part of that new blockchain ecosystem, if you want to help Southern California become this new blockchain innovation hub, please learn more about blockchain. Blockchain is the future, and as this seminar so says, it is actually here. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll all agree that presentation was off the chain. I mean, on the chain, as the case may be. In fact, we're going to take out your number 2 pencils now. We're going to have a test on it. As a matter of fact, can we hear it again? Because we want to make sure we understand it. Okay, we're going to get into a little bit more very, very shortly. Our next speaker is a plumber. We'll delve into it a little bit further. Actually, no. But we will get into it a little bit more, and very, very hot topic right now. Thank you very much, Heidi, for that insightful blockchain presentation. Here at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, the College of Extended and International Education is planning to offer a 3-day blockchain architecture program for late winter 2019. In addition, a faculty-led 2 to 3 hour blockchain symposium is now being developed in collaboration with the South Bay Workforce Investment Board. That'll be coming up in late January, early February 2019, so stay tuned for more information about that. Ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter is Sean Sundar. He's with EdgeSoft as co-founder and CEO of the company EdgeSoft. Sean and his team collaborate with local California cities to help them develop smart cities. Smart cities. Sean is also a member of the Millennium Momentum Foundation Board and is an advisor to the management school here at Dominguez Hills. Sean will talk about how cities can enhance the quality and performance of their services and transition into smart cities. Please welcome Sean Sundar. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, we just heard about augmented reality from Facebook and blockchain. Now I'm going to talk about smart cities. You were wondering where is the connection, right? So some cities in the world are beginning to talk about augmented reality. They're using it, they're experimenting it. I'll talk about that. And also blockchain. I think Dubai said in a few years, they want to do all the transaction using blockchain, right? Yeah. So how many of you know what smart city is? You do. How many of you don't know? My personal opinion is every city can be a smart city. It doesn't have to be a 90210, right? It could be any city. Some really poor cities in India are becoming smart city because the government declared that they're going to be smart cities. So I'll talk about whatever little I know about smart city. So we are my company is based in Manhattan Beach, South Bay, and but we are also consultant to the government of India for creating project reports for smart cities. And so one of the cities we worked with is Agra. You know, how many people know where Agra is? Okay, that's where Taj Mahal is. How many people know Taj Mahal, right? So, and one of the things I told my team, so are we going to make Taj Mahal a smart Taj Mahal now, you know? So when you walk in, so it's going to talk to you. So, So, like I said, what is smart city? So I'm going to talk about a few things. Instead of talking about what is smart city, because it's a very, very difficult definition. IBM will say something else, Cisco will say something else, Google will say something, Facebook will talk about something else. And, but instead of talking about what is smart city, I want to talk about why smart city. Given the smartphone technology revolution, now we are going into Internet of Things and augmented reality. New generation, we saw Bree talk about where we are going 10 years from now. That's a new generation. Every service we wanted now and now, right? And that's what smart city is. If you can provide that kind of service to the citizens, that's what smart city is. That's why we need smart city. So, before Honda comes up, talk about autonomous vehicles. Is it a smart car? 9600 blah, 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 A batteries in a car, right? So there are a lot of misconception about smart cities, smart cars. Best way to keep the street clean, right? I was on a panel in Dubai, and we were talking about keeping cities clean, right? And one of the things I got involved in is that city of Dubai has 130 countries, representing 130 countries. And nobody thinks that they are part of Dubai. So when you have that, enforcement cannot be the only thing which can keep the cleanliness going. Singapore is a great example. You walk in Singapore, it's clean, but you go behind the scene to restaurants, it's the dirtiest place on earth, right? Because that's enforcement cannot keep it, right? So one of the things I want to talk about is culture, which is what I just alluded to in Dubai. Urban Technologies talked about the inconvenient truth about smart cities, right? The most important thing here is the third point. It has to be both top-down and bottom-up, right? Meaning, Compton can be I'm going to name some cities. You know, Compton or Watts can be a smart city, so is Beverly Hills or San Fernando. It all depends on really improving the service. There is no standard definition of if you follow 10 of these, you become smart city, right? The other thing I want to talk about is that I love this thing when somebody said, before you bring down the fences, you must understand why the fence was put up in the first place, right? So people walk in like cities, companies like big companies, there's, oh, you got to have fiber to every home, right? We all hear about different cities talking about fiber to every home. Now we're talking about 5G, right? So where do you draw the line? And cities spend millions and millions of dollars because some mayor, there are some mayors in the room, they heard something in some conference and say, okay, let's do this, right? But the citizens may not be ready for it. So it is very important to really understand what a city can handle. So the balance is important. What I mean by that is that if a city, you have to look at the financial maturity of the city, service maturity, technology maturity, because if technology is not there, you can't really do IoT models, right? You can't really do a lot of things. And most importantly, the culture. The culture also has to play a role. The city may not be ready for some really smart, technology for that city. So this is my own personal experience. I was asked to tour a city in India, and they have these garbage bins, which are loaded with IoTs. They have IoTs in those garbage bins. So if it fills up 3/4, it'll notify somebody, right? So they're taking me around. This is true story, okay? Have you guys heard of garbage mafia? It exists in countries like that. So in that city where they've spent millions of dollars, You go to 4 or 5 places, like that is a smart bin, and the garbage mafia is one of the largest slums in India, right? I don't want to name the city. So all the garbage is taken to that place. People are not using these the smart garbage bins, right? But some technology company sold it. So that's why I want to talk about culture. Culture is very important. Is your city ready for the technology, right? So smart city technology can be used to fix potholes in some of our cities here, right? I was a guest speaker a couple of days ago in Cal State Dominguez Hills, and the professor said there are a lot of potholes in our campus. We got to do a smart pothole fixing, right? So, but that's real. That's real, okay? If you don't fix it, what is autonomous vehicle going to do if you have a lot of potholes, right? The other thing is cleanliness, which I talked about, right? That's what people do. Cleanliness is different for different cultures, right? If you're from Europe, the cleanliness means something else. If you're from Asia, the cleanliness means something else. If I'm from India, the cleanliness means something else. So it's very important to understand the culture before we start, pushing technology on people. This is the street in the same city, which I talked about. So what are the things happening in the world? What is exciting is that if you look at, I'm talking about the global trends, 75% of world population, which is more than 5 billion, it's growing, is going to be in urban areas, living in urban areas. People are moving all over China, India, so many things happening even here. So that's what is going on. Modernization is important. Technology is coming through in terms of IoT, augmented reality. All these are very, very important to a city. And one of the things, modernization, we are talking about is in big cities, they have high-rise buildings. The inspectors won't even go there to do the inspection. Somebody talked about permitting process. It takes a long time to get approval. And cities like Dubai are doing augmented reality with drones. Inspector can sit in his office and do the inspection with augmented reality and drones. That's the future. That's here now, right? So I don't want to bore you with a lot of these technical stuff, but where we are going is number 4, right? That's what true smart city is. Predictive modeling. All of a sudden, this event is happening, okay? So what if this event attracted 50,000 people? How is the university going to handle it, right? Dubai is going to have, I think, 20 million people coming in 2020. And the population is 2.5 million. So they're doing all this predictive modeling. What's going to happen? Especially for food, trash, big deal, right? So that's what transformation is. We have gone through the first 3. In America, we have gone through the first 3, a lot of cities, okay? Number 4 is what is very important. So personally, I have a problem with this term smart city. Every city is a smart city. I mean, if I'm a smart city, the neighboring city is a dumb city, right? So somebody's going to give you a graduation, you're a smart city, right? Everyone can be a smart city. And in South Bay, there are about 20 cities, I think, in South Bay. And all of them are doing something. All of them. So to say that, no, Beverly Hills won the Google City of the Year. And what about Inglewood, right? So my company's objective is to make sure every city understanding their needs and making them the smart city. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Sean, thank you very much for that very smart presentation. And our final presentation now, society's mobility needs are constantly evolving with the rapidly changing pace of personal mobility options and technology. Extensive research has taken place to examine the future of mobility. And here to talk about this and other impacts on mobility, Pete Wendt, Senior Planner, Advanced Product Planning in the Power Sports Division. Aziz Mokley, the Principal Research Analyst. And Matt Stahl, Senior Engineer and New Business Advisor at Honda R&D Americas Incorporated. Please welcome Pete, welcome Aziz, and welcome Matt.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pete Wendt. A little bit of background on me. I'm a South Bay native. I went to South Torrance High School, and I still live in Redondo Beach, so glad to be here. So things are changing very rapidly, as everybody's alluded to, and the mobility space is really no different. And so what we want to talk today about is the future of mobility. So many of you may not know this, but there actually was a Mr. Honda. He started the company back in the late 40s, putting engines onto bicycles. And he's gone now, but he has a philosophy that he's left behind, and he has a lot of great quotes, and we thought this quote was really fitting for this event. We only have one future, and it will be made of our dreams if we have the courage to challenge convention. And I thought that was a great theme for today, because if you're not challenging convention these days, you're probably going to get left behind. There's going to be some startup or some really small, fast-moving company or some new technology that's going to come in and take over. So you really have to keep that in mind. So a little bit of background about Honda in the US. Honda in the US has about 30,000 employees. We have over 10,000 dealerships between autos, power sports, power equipment, et cetera. And Honda was actually one of the first companies to open a manufacturing plant, the first company to open a manufacturing plant in the US, and first international company. And today we have 12 manufacturing plants. One thing that's really telling about Honda, though, is that in all the history of Honda, the company has never had a negative profit year, never lost money, which is pretty impressive in any industry, but in an industry like the auto industry that's super cyclical, it's really impressive. So how did Honda end up in the South Bay really quickly? So Mr. Honda, after about 10 years selling motorcycles successfully in Japan, came over to the US in the late 50s. They opened a office in a small former photo studio on Pico Boulevard. And within just a few years, with his 8 staff, they were selling 40,000 motorcycles a year. And they needed a bigger facility, so in the early 60s, they moved to Gardena. And then a few years after that, they said, well, why don't we start bringing some of the cars over that we're selling in Japan? And as you well know, that went very successfully as well. And in 1990, Honda built its own kind of custom-designed campus in Torrance for its new headquarters. And we're still there today. There are about 2,200 associates, about 300 of which are with the R&D group that we're with. And just a quick note that we sold 1.6 million cars last year and over 180,000 motorcycles and ATVs. So why Los Angeles? Why be here? Well, for one, we think of it as kind of the center of the universe, but of course the diversity, which was already talked about, you have this amazing unmatched diversity here that gives you all these great insights and ideas. It's kind of the center of trends, fashion, Hollywood, architecture even. We have this great culture of innovation here through our aerospace history, as well as this has been kind of the hub of car culture since the 50s in Southern California. What I think is most interesting, though, is what I call this kind of California mindset. If you think about the people that came to California in the last 50 years, or even 150 years ago in a covered wagon or from another country, these were the risk takers in the whole country. These are the risk takers in the world that left everything behind. They didn't stay with friends and family back on the East Coast or Midwest or whatever. They came out to California by themselves, whether it was on a covered wagon or just in the last few years. And so it's no coincidence that there's so much innovation happening out here in California and Los Angeles and the South Bay, because these people are the direct descendants of these really risk takers and innovative mindset, or they were raised by these people. Next thing is we have access. So South Bay is kind of a small town feel, but we have access to this big city of Los Angeles just down the road and all of its amazing resources. And that's really hard to beat in a lot of places. And then finally, all of that is balanced out with this kind of, laid back beach lifestyle that we've all known to love. So when you're driving around on the road, or yes, even in the dirt, you'll see a lot of vehicles. You'll see Hondas and Acuras, and many of these vehicles that you see on the road from Honda and Acura were conceived and planned and marketed and sold through our office just down the street in Torrance. So keep that in mind next time you see some Honda and Acura vehicles. So, of course, cars and motorcycles are our core business, and we're going to continue to make those for the near future. But the world's changing, and we're constantly looking for new ways to evolve mobility and to also continue to bring joy to the customer. We're going to keep talking about that right now.
Thank you, Pete. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aziz Chmakli. As Pete mentioned, the three of us are from advanced product planning groups in the Torrance office. I'm on the automotive side. But I think the important point that Pete just made is that he ended on with the joy for the customer or the consumer. That's really what we do in R&D. It's not just design and develop and plan for technology. First of all, we have to understand the consumer, and it starts with the consumer. We need to go beyond just simply demographics, how many they are, what potential in terms of sales, penetration, and so forth. For our technology to be successful and to be adopted, we first have to understand the values, and from the values of the consumers, we can begin to understand the wants and needs. We have to do this before we can even consider what kind of technology and what kind of investments we're going to make down the road. This is an example. The Super Cub, it was introduced in the late 50s. And since then, it's become the best-selling personal transportation vehicle of all time, surpassing the Beetle, Model T, the Civic, Corolla, you name it. It had a very clever marketing campaign. It had technology that was very unique for this class of vehicle, but what really made it successful and continues to do so is the development team first started to, with not what can we do in the form of technology, but who's that buyer, what's that untapped market need, and what are those latent needs and wants? And from that, the vehicle was, the Super Cub was born. Sorry, wrong direction. I mentioned again the consumers. Right now we're in the midst of a sea change of generational leadership. We've all heard of the millennials, of course, also known as Gen Y. But it's very important. It goes beyond just simple demographics, as I said. They will be the society leaders in for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So for us as a mobility company, and really more or less every other mobility company, we first need to understand, what are those values of these consumers? How are they different from Generation X, from the boomers and other generations? What are those values that they're going to carry throughout their lives, and what, and of course transfer that or translate that into needs and wants? As Dr. Martinez said this earlier, traffic is getting worse. It's not going to get better. The infrastructure simply can't keep up. And this is going to have a dramatic impact on this coming generation as they become economically prominent. They're going to be the ones that begin to influence society, government, business, and so forth. So we need to understand what is it they're going to do in relationship to an ever-increasing and worsening mobility infrastructure out there. And it's from this we can then determine what we need to do as far as develop new mobility solutions for them. For example, just a few years ago, the vehicle was essentially the center of the daily life. You needed to go to work, entertainment, run errands, health issues, whatever. Today, you can do all those without the use of a car. And if you still need mobility, you can call it up. But it's not just simply that the technology was created that allowed this to do it. The consumer adapted to it. And millennials being digital natives, that is basically growing up with smartphones in their hands, they are the ones that are readily adopting and causing the disruption that we're seeing in the mobility industry. These brand names, excuse me, are probably very familiar to you. They're causing disruption and basically angst for the OEM industries, but the OEMs like Honda have to adopt and embrace this new technology as well. The typical way of doing business is going to change because the new consumers are augmenting their mobility needs, or in some cases replacing traditional vehicle ownership with these new types of mobility, everything from e-hailing Uber down to the e-bikes that you see lining the streets and sidewalks. So I'm going to now turn it over to Matt, who will then explain what those critical technologies are that are going to really shape the future of mobility.
Thank you, Aziz. So we've talked about generational shift, urbanization, and even the advent of smartphone technology. That's causing this disruption in mobility. So these new technologies are being incorporated and considered in new research methods that we're taking on within Honda. So 4 of those key technologies, some of you are probably very familiar with, of course, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, or even connectivity, and even some of the newer forms of transportation, like the shared economy, like the e-bikes and also the e-scooters. So the key point here is that these technologies are being applied for a reason, although they're very complex in terms of how do you get those integrated so they work and have no failure. For example, autonomous technology is in various levels of maturation. The final and end goal is for the vehicle to be driven by itself or self-driven and basically no steering wheel. That'll be kind of a strange situation for a lot of us that grew up around cars, but that could happen in a number of years ahead. And of course, connectivity is also very important. So when you think about, it's not just how your smartphone connects to the vehicle, but in the future, how are the vehicles going to communicate with each other? Or if a vehicle is going down a road and there's an emergency vehicle up ahead, perhaps there will be some signal sent to the driver alerting them that there's a hazard up ahead or to pull over. And then finally, for the safety of pedestrians, living in this car-centric world, we all know that as a pedestrian, you have to be very careful before you step off the curb. And a lot of us see this, walking down the street, and a lot of times, and we're all guilty of ourselves of spending time on our phone and not really thinking about what's ahead of us. So this is very important. Of course, battery electric vehicles are also a key player in cutting carbon emissions, especially when you compare that to a conventional powered car, a 50% cut in the emissions over a year. And then finally, the membership-based services like the Bird scooters and some of these shared bikes that are now being integrated into society with very difficult ways. I'm sure a lot of the cities and the planners are trying to figure out how do you accommodate these, because there's obviously demand, but how do they fit in so they're a seamless part of society? So these developments are very complex, but it's also a very good challenge and a good opportunity for us as we develop the future of mobility. So when we think about traditional research, we often will go into the field, we'll talk to consumers. Has anybody been in a focus group for a car? Like if you bought a new car and somebody invited you and they wanted to talk to you for an hour, understand how much satisfaction you had with the car, correct? That's still going to happen. However, there's going to be a change in terms of how we go about our research. It's no longer just about the end user, the consumer that's going to buy the car or the motorcycle and own it for a number of years and then replace it. It's going to be about not only the private user, but also from a public standpoint, whether it's a city, and also thinking about your smart devices, how those integrate seamlessly, and the infrastructure, as we talked about earlier. So the technology is much more complex, and it's going to require a lot more involvement among other players in the market rather than just a OEM car maker to sell a product. So with that, we sell cars, motorcycles, power equipment, but we're also looking at what are the new business opportunities that we could be looking at beyond our conventional vehicles, and services and experiences that Honda can provide, much like other, if you want to think about technology companies that are selling you a service and not necessarily just a product. So you probably heard there's a prototype on display. It's called the Autonomous Workhorse. And this is actually Pete's baby. He's been working on this for the last 2-3 years. It takes a lot of work to work through a lot of the development. But this is a device that's very unconventional for Honda. But it has some new opportunities to take something that we already make, like an all-terrain vehicle, apply some AI technology to it, and then have it apply to various types of businesses or user cases. Could be used for farming, could be used for firefighting, or even as a snowplow. Of course, we don't have snowplows here, but some of our friends, our colleagues in Ohio, would probably find that to be very useful. So we want you to be able to see that, and if you have any questions about that, feel free to talk to Pete. So as we finish up, 3 points we'd like you to take away today is the first being the South Bay. We look at it as a very creative hub of the future of mobility, and for Honda, this is not only just an ideal place to live, but also to do work and to create some new opportunities and new products. Second is the rapid shift in the mobility options. So as Aziz said, car-centric. We've all kind of grown up that way, but now we have a lot of other options when it comes to how we want to get around. So in some cases, we know a car going to the airport's a little more difficult with the parking and whatnot. You may decide to take another form to get dropped off. So these are very important, especially as the urban areas are expanding and getting more dense. And the new generation continues to embrace this new technology. And of course, they're all about embracing change. So maybe this is very good opportunity, since we're here with a lot of the university students, to say that you are the future and you're going to be leading the charge on a lot of these new technologies. And then finally, we think that rather than Honda go out and work independently, we still need to be thinking beyond our own space and working closely with both public and private groups to think about how do you innovate in this future space. So with that, we conclude our presentation, and it's been a great pleasure to, at least for the three of us, maybe get a 3-for-1 deal here, to present this to you and share with some of the things that we've been working on. So thank you.
Gentlemen, remain on stage and take a seat. I'd like to invite all the panelists to take a seat here on the stage now. We have our helpful Honda guys in place here. Love that, right? After this, they're going to clear the tables and do the dishes, and then some vacuuming and sweeping of the floors, not only in this room, but throughout the entire campus. Gentlemen, we've had self-driving cars. I'll start with you. We've had self-driving cars for years, actually. We drive around Southern California. We see people putting on makeup, handling their smartphones while they're driving. So we seem to have self-driving cars out there. When are we going to see the real self-driving cars hit the road here in the South Bay? What's the exact date, please?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, go for it.
You hear a lot in the news about 2021 as a big year for some companies that are going to be applying some self-driving technology. There's actually 5 levels of autonomous driving technology. And so I think we're right now in level 2 and level 3, where in some cases you can drive down the open highway and there's a series of cameras and radar devices that are tracking the vehicle, so you're not having to really be that attentive in terms of you don't even have your hands on the wheel. However, you're still there, whether it's a Tesla or a Cadillac or even a Honda or Acura, you still have to be there to take over when needed. So I think it's going to be further out than 21 when you're going to see what some people coin the term robotaxi, where there's no steering wheel. That's probably going to be a little bit further out. As far as the year, we don't have an exact time.
What about the exact date? All right, we'll get back to that. For the economists on the panel, obviously affordable housing, a huge issue for everyone here. When somebody asks you what's up, the correct answer is nothing but the rent if you live here in Southern California. So for Dr. Martinez and for Dr. Prager and perhaps for William Yu as well from the UCLA Anderson forecast, what's the outlook here with affordability getting worse in this area? And it should be noted a greater number of South Bay millennials are living with their parents than in the last, it says here, 130 years, somebody calculated, largely due to a disparity in wage increase, among other things. When will this change? Dr. Martinez.
Do you want a specific date?
If you don't mind.
I think the main issue is for employers, right? We know that this is a very good area, innovative area. We're trying to attract the brightest minds in the world. But the key is, how do you attract them to an area that is very expensive, that is going to take them an hour and a half to get to work? So the key here is about transportation and making sure that you're able to attract and retain the workers. So this issue of housing and traffic is about economic development. So if we don't handle that or we don't think about that, then I don't think the economy can sustain its growth.
Okay. So the short answer for that question, I think, is not quite optimistic in terms of affordability issue. Yeah. Just like Jose mentioned about this demand and supply issue, demand and supply factor. So in Southern California, we had a strong demand, and supply factor doesn't help at all. So actually, personally, I had this three-word answer: long-term, sustainable solution for this housing crisis, which is build, baby, build. Yeah. So I know that's very difficult. So, but I had done some research about that. I analyzed the demand factor, consider about the amenity, human capital, ocean, the distance to the beach, all those kind of factor and economic development. And another factor is the building permit number over the past 10 years, 20 years. And it's always very significant. That is the factor to determine an area which is very expensive or not so expensive. So I think we need to change the mindset. We need to embrace the high density for Southern California. Yeah, we are not like several decades ago. This is a great place, just like everybody say here. It's a great place, and we should try to make housing less expensive. And
certainly,
one solution is, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Could somebody close that door? Every time the toilet flushes, I'm hearing it. We have to close that door over there, please. Any thoughts on Prop 10? Is rent control an issue here in the South Bay? Any thoughts on Prop 10, Dr. Prager?
I saw a really interesting survey which asked residents of California what was the main cause of housing inaffordability. And number one on that wasn't the economist's answer, which is clear and obvious, increase the supply. It was the lack of rent control. So regardless of whether economists like it or not, in general, people see this as a problem, a cause of the problem, even though it's actually a solution. Whether that works or not is another question. So that particular proposition that allows cities more sway over their own rent control policies. So it's not like by voting for that, you're then going to create rent control across the state of California. It's a two-stage process. But it looks like people do favor it as a step in that direction.
let's zoom out here in the limited time we have available, and we're going to open up to the audience for some questions as well. But folks, what are some of the biggest challenges cities face as they transition into the smart cities of the future, and will this lead to a worsening of the affordability situation here for residents? Yes. And will there be any Singaporean restaurants here in the South Bay anytime soon?
I think the technology answer is the connectivity, right? If we can have all kinds of technology, but if your smartphone is not up to speed, if 5G is not coming through fast enough, quick enough, it's going to be a problem. That is from the technology side. And from the city's infrastructure side, unless cities are going towards cloud computing, it's going to be a challenge. You know, if you don't have internal infrastructure, and a lot of cities are still holding on to internal infrastructure, it becomes a problem. So it's not going to serve the citizens quick enough.
What is the smartest of the smart cities, and which is the stupidest out there?
You know, at the end of the day, if citizens are enjoying, to stay there, work there, so I hear Barcelona is supposed to be a great smart city. I've never been there, so it's hearsay. But my daughter was there and she had a ball, so I could. And Dubai, for sure, because they have money. I mean, now they're experimenting flying taxis. Dubai is, and the worst smart city, stupidest smart city, you said one of the South Bay cities, I think. I don't know. I really don't know.
I understand Honda is working on flying cars. Gentlemen, any insight on that? We need them here.
It'll be quite some time before we ever get to flying cars. First, we need to fix autonomous cars on the road, though Honda does make a jet, so you could take that. But you guys?
Very good. Anybody else? Yeah, okay. All right, Bitcoin and blockchain, certainly they have their supporters. We saw Bitcoin hit, about almost 20,000 late last year, and it's down around 6,400 now. The explanation was it's going up because it's going up, and now the explanation is it's going down because it's going down. We're still trying to figure that out. It does have tremendous boosters, but tremendous critics as well. Dr. Nouriel Roubini, for example, is a very vocal critic. I can't even use the word that he uses to describe Bitcoin, but you can just imagine what it might be. For the critics of blockchain, he also says that blockchain is an overhyped technology. How do you answer the very severe critics on all this?
Well, I'm going to say cryptocurrency is a little different discussion than the actual blockchain technology. I actually am the worst person to ask about crypto investing because I buy high and sell low. So unfortunately, although I do think cryptocurrencies
You've had a good week then.
Yeah.
The most volatile week for stocks anyway, not necessarily for Bitcoin, but certainly it's been a wild year. Go ahead.
Cryptocurrencies are definitely here to stay in many, many ways, and the banks, I think, are one of the first to be afraid. In fact, I mentioned that $2 billion is being invested by companies today in the United States, and half of that are by the banks because they are worried they do not want to be disintermediated. And actually, Bank of America and other banks have filed the most patents, even though this is open source, which is kind of weird, but they've filed the most patents in this space. But other countries like Singapore, they actually encourage the study of cryptocurrencies between their banks. And they're using cryptocurrencies. We'll never see it. It's a currency that's between banks to reconcile their books like within seconds rather than what would take normally days or longer, and they actually have a product in Singapore between banks and now with banks internationally. I kind of want to change the subject, though, not from
Unfortunately,
Bitcoin.
we don't have time for that, so Facebook is building its own artificial reality glasses. According to The Verge, who does not want a strap-on internet-connected Facebook camera to their face? So says today's The Verge. Facebook has a huge investment in virtual reality, most prominently in its ownership of Oculus. Social media giant has confirmed that it's working on augmented reality glasses too, according to TechCrunch. For Facebook, is this correct? And are we going to be wearing these things out in public?
Well, like I said, nobody wants to wear those big, huge goggles, right? That's just where we are right now with the technology and with the hardware. So literally the technology to make the glass thin enough doesn't exist yet, but it will. Just like how PCs, what's that law, the Marshall's Law or whatever of computing? That was close. So it's the same thing on the hardware side. So the way you see the sets now are not what it's going to be in 10 years. So same with the augmented reality glasses. How they are now is not what it's going to be in 10 years. What is it going to look like? I don't know. Like hopefully very seamless, just the same as if you went back to that 1895 train story and tried to explain what a mobile phone was or even a TV, right? It's going to be something that is going to seem very clear to us. So it's going to be more about how easy it is for everybody to have, just like every single person in this room I know has a mobile phone. That's why that's not the future, it's the present.
Who doesn't in here?
Yeah, who is the one person that doesn't? I will call you out. But that'll be the case with virtual reality, and then we start to see, okay, how does that content change beyond gaming? Be interesting.
We're going to turn to the audience now for questions. I know the first question is sometimes slow in coming, so is there a second question as we prepare to conclude this forum? Second question, please.
Growing segment of our population is the homeless population. So how, if at all, when we look at economic development in the region, is the homeless problem?
Dealing with the homeless issue here in the South Bay, what's being done, if anything? Please go right ahead.
Well, obviously, there were two major policies passed by voters in the region. So there's the LA County property tax measure and then a sales tax in the city of LA. And both of those have raised, I think, a total of over $4 billion over a number of years. That is, aiming towards reducing the number of homeless and also, reducing the number that are entering homelessness. Clearly, the problem now is how and where do you build the homes that are going to house the homeless population? Mayor Garcetti is trying to convince local neighborhoods to welcome those new housing units into their neighborhoods, and it's facing a lot of opposition, even in what we'd see as liberal enclaves like Venice. So my suspicion is the implementation is going to be very difficult indeed.
Thank you, Dr. Prager. Next question from the audience. We have a microphone. Please go right ahead.
Hi, my question is for the Honda folks. If you look from the point that Mr. Honda first started the company, combustion engine, kind of a linear progression in the planning. But now as we look at not only autonomous vehicles, but different deliveries, different modalities, different users, how is your planning and design staff evolving to look at these many different views of the future?
And what's the future of the combustion engine? Some countries are getting set to outlaw them, right?
That's correct. I think also even in some of the urban environments, there's a lot of proposals to ban what we call ICEs, or internal combustion engines, from the city centers. So that we're in the midst of that. And so in terms, we can't give any details of the plans that we're in, but I can guarantee you, like in our particular departments, we're knee deep in a lot of these issues that we're trying to figure out how does Honda adapt to this kind of new mobility environment. So we think there's still going to be a place for the personally owned car. We're going to see electric starting to increase adoption. Of course, a lot of that happens with affordability. The cars have to be affordable to own and to even to rent. But I think for these other modes of transportation, we're actively looking at those and looking for some solutions.
Next question from the audience. Go right ahead.
So my question is also for Team Honda. So you talked a lot about the future of the cars and the automotive sector and how in the future we're going to have the autonomous cars or semi-autonomous cars, right? So, but even in the millennials or Gen Zers, a vast population is still what we used to call petrol heads, people who like to drive cars. So what is Team Honda or the whole automotive sector, whether it's Team Honda or some of the other competitors of Team Honda, doing to make sure there is some sort of satisfaction for those consumers in the future who would like to see the steering wheel in the car?
Yeah, I think that's always going to be there. I'm a huge petrol head myself. That's a big challenge for us right now. You read all these articles about Gen Y not being interested in cars, and we alluded to it earlier, is they have these options now, whereas when I was growing up, if you wanted to go on a date, you had to have a car. If you wanted to connect with your friends, you had to have a car, and it's not so true anymore. You can connect so well without having a car these days, and so there's just less pressure on them to do it. But I think you're always going to have that core customer, that core enthusiast that wants to have some fun with the car. So I don't think that's ever going to go away. And the autonomy is going to trickle in very slowly. It's going to start with luxury cars. You're going to have, a lot of you probably have a car that has automatic emergency braking. These features are just going to slowly trickle in, and eventually we'll get to a fully autonomous car, but it's going to take a long time.
What do you need for a date now? Smartphone, of course. Go right ahead, please.
You talked about the economic impact of manufacturing jobs in this region, and I'm just wondering if you could address the current trade policy and how that can affect the jobs, and if the increase in tariffs will eventually affect the number of jobs that are either being created or maintained in this region.
William Yu, just back from Taiwan, please go right ahead.
That's a very big question. So right now the trade tension, I think, is only with China, because I think eventually we figure out with Canada and Mexico and then Japan, Europe. So there should be no problem. But the major problem will be with China, and I think that is beyond just pure economics situation. They are geopolitical, and so it's very complex. I don't know what will eventually play out next year. I'm pretty sure probably we will see 25% of a tariff on those 200 billion Chinese import. That's pretty sure, because even though there will be a meeting between President Trump and Xi in November, I don't think there will be a big change out of that meeting. Yeah, and in terms of impact, I would say actually we are looking at a number. It does help manufacturing job in the United States. It do that because that's the original motivation of this trade talk. But in terms of impact on, for example, Los Angeles ports, logistics, there might be some kind of negative impact for that. And we all American consumer, probably need to pay a little bit more in the short run. In the long run.
Thank you very much. The next question from we have people from all over the world here today, and some of you have come from as far away as Orange County. I see there's a person from Orange County who's got a question. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to thank the college or the university for sponsoring this. I'm actually in the labor movement. I work for the Teamsters Union, and my name is Patrick Kelly. And I'd like to get some response from the academics on how do we move forward in a time when we have 400,000 jobs in the logistics sector here in Southern California. We don't have a lot of manufacturing jobs like we used to. We certainly have manufacturing jobs, but now we're really faced with an existential threat with Prop 6, which will basically wipe out a lot of infrastructure funding in the highway sector and in transit. And I personally believe we will defeat Prop 6, but we've got to put a lot of energy and resource into educating people. And I really think there's a challenge for the business and the academic community to help educate people that there is no such thing as a real free lunch. And that we have to, if we love California, we have to protect California, and we have to educate people that if they have to pay 12 cents a gallon or whatever it is to have safe streets and to have good highways and not have gridlock, that people need to step up
All right.
Because I'll tell you, we're not going to have the jobs we have if we're not real careful. Thank you.
How about Dr. Prager? I asked you about Prop 10. How about Prop 6? That would be repealing the recently imposed gas tax of 12 cents.
So taxes are not popular for any voter, right? Nobody likes to spend more money on things. But in this case, there does seem to be a significant price that we're paying for the lack of investment in infrastructure. And so I guess voters need to weigh up whether they want to pay less at the pump or maybe pay more for the damage to their car or the knock-on effects of impacts to business and logistics that may happen.
Anybody else on infrastructure? Hardly we saw that picture of the gushing standpipe. Hardly a day goes by when the pipe doesn't blow out or the lights don't go out someplace here. As far as supporting infrastructure improvements, any signs that we're going to see some movement there? Dr. Martinez.
You want a specific date?
Of course.
I think the key, going back to the jobs question, I think there was a study of the LADC that shows that there's going to be a lot of new jobs in the area, but the problem is that they're not going to be enough to be a living wages that people can afford to live here. So that is a challenge. So you want jobs, but you want good paying jobs. So it is tricky to think about just jobs in jobs terms, because if you don't have a reasonable wage, it doesn't make any difference that to live here you need higher wages. So it's not just about jobs. The discussion should be about the wages, not just the number.
Let's go back to tech now. One of the hot spots here with Silicon Beach, of course, and Blockchain Beach, as we heard, in the Bay Area, I guess. For the tech folks, how do you see entrepreneurship evolving here in the South Bay? And give us an update on the vibrant tech sector here in the Silicon Beach area.
Sure. So as I mentioned, Silicon Beach, there's a section called Blockchain Beach. We are, for better or worse, the ICO hub of the country. We have the largest investment companies that invest in ICOs, the biggest marketing media, some of the best attorneys. And so there's a lot of activity despite some of all these questions around regulation. But in addition to that, I had mentioned in my presentation, Northern California is very focused on blockchain protocols. New York is very focused on financial services. For all of the rest, including supply chain management, logistics, aerospace, healthcare, really there's so much happening in Southern California, and I hope that we encourage our future students to look at jobs in that, because that's where there will be a lot of job growth.
Yeah, and can I just add on the media side? So I'm actually based in LA, so Facebook has an office here on the entertainment side. Remember I talked about content and distribution. The infrastructure of media is mostly in NorCal, like from the technology platforms, but all of the content platform development is down here. And so that's kind of the other half of Silicon Beach, because I'm right down the street in Playa Vista. But what you're seeing is, like I said, there has never been more content buyers than right now. You don't have to sign a deal with Warner Brothers if you want to become a movie director. And all the digital startups in Silicon Beach are people like a BuzzFeed or these digital native publishers that are Full Screen is based there, all these things, that are buying up media like crazy, and all the content production happens here. We're still the entertainment capital of the world. You're just getting a diversified buyer's market. So it's really interesting. Like, I know we have a big media department here, big production department. It's interesting where your career can take you in entertainment nowadays.
When I met your boss, Sheryl Sandberg, a while ago, I had the chance to tell her that we went to the same high school together.
Oh, yeah.
She was there 10 years after I was there, but North Miami Beach Senior High School, and she said, oh, yeah, have you ever been back there? And she was very excited about, how does it feel to be back on this campus, having been a former student? How does it feel?
They can't get rid of me here. I love it here. I had an amazing experience here, which is why I like to stay involved and be on the board, so they can't get rid of me.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for participating. The pressure is on the final question of this conference. Please go right ahead.
Okay. I have a question about like a smart city, because I was in Paris like last year, and I noticed that I wanted to know if Paris is considered a smart city, and I noticed that they had cars that you can rent and park in different parts of the city, and that was the first time I saw that, so I don't know if that type of mode of transportation is available in the States.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that was for me, right?
Yes, go ahead.
I think one of the biggest problems we have in our country is that a lot of regulations, a lot of cities have to go through a lot of hoops to convince. Paris is one of the first cities get into the smart city conversation, and because one of the things which is important is that the politicians and the leaders have to get involved. And that is kind of a little bit lacking in our country, but it's coming along. The new generation of council members and all these folks are coming in, millennials, it's going to turn around, right? So, because council members and the city management decide a lot of things. So it's coming. I mean, Beverly Hills is going to experiment autonomous vehicles and things like that. It's coming.
Today's speakers' presentations, by the way, and the South Bay Economic Forecast Report will be available tomorrow on the Cal State University Dominguez Hills website. We're going to have a little mini Oktoberfest downstairs, I understand now, in the Palm Courtyard for the complimentary craft beer and wine tasting reception. You will need your pass to get in there, so keep your name badges on. They are your entrance ticket to the reception, and a reminder that in addition to Honda's autonomous workhorse, Bree Nguyen has also brought some Oculus Go headsets for you to check out, so you'll want to join us for some food and fun downstairs. On behalf of Cal State University Dominguez Hills and President Parham, I want to thank you very much for joining us here today. Please join me in a huge round of applause for our panel of speakers. Thank you very much.